Welcome to Property Report UK, your trusted source for clear, fact-based insight into the ever-changing housing market. Today, we're exploring one of the most pressing and confusing stories unfolding across Britain right now, a rental market that's showing two faces at once. On paper, supply is up, growth is slowing, and experts talk of stabilization. But for millions of tenants, affordability has never felt worse. So what's really happening, and what does it mean for the year ahead? Across the United Kingdom, rents have climbed to record highs. The average tenant now pays £1,354 a month, around £70 more than this time last year. That's a 5.5% annual rise, modest compared to the post-pandemic surge, but still a serious strain for households already stretched by the cost of living. For a working family, that extra £840 a year can mean the difference between saving and slipping into debt. The regional picture tells an even more complex story. The Northeast, once considered the UK's most affordable rental region, has seen prices leap by more than 9% in just 12 months. In Yorkshire and the Humber, rents are growing more slowly at around 3.8%, while London, often seen as ground zero for high housing costs, has actually cooled to a growth rate of 5.3%. Yet even with that slowdown, London's average rent now sits at an eye-watering £1,960 a month. The gap between regional and national averages is widening, creating a patchwork market where some areas are overheating while others are beginning to plateau. And then there are the local hotspots, towns and cities seeing extreme rent inflation that defies national averages. In Chippenham, Wiltshire, rents have risen over 16% in a single year. Stockport has seen a similar increase, Coventry more than 14%, and even Grimsby, long regarded as a budget-friendly town, is up 12%. Behind each of these numbers are real families facing difficult decisions, whether to absorb another rent rise, relocate, or uproot entirely. What makes this so unusual is that, at the same time, rental supply is actually improving. There are roughly 20% more properties available to rent today than a year ago. Demand, meanwhile, is falling, letting agents report about 24% fewer inquiries from tenants. Normally, that combination should bring prices down, but rents continue to climb. Why? The answer lies in where that new supply is coming from. Buy-to-let investors have started to return after several years of retreat. In early 2025, mortgage approvals for landlords jumped by 60%, as average rental yields hit 6% nationwide, even higher in the Northeast and Scotland. With interest rates stabilizing, property investment began to look profitable again. More homes entered the rental market, but many of them were snapped up instantly, leaving overall vacancy levels near zero. At the same time, part of the tenant demand has disappeared for the right reasons. A small number of renters have managed to buy their first homes thanks to slightly improved mortgage access. Others are leaving the rental sector altogether due to migration shifts. Yet even with these changes, the fundamental imbalance remains: Britain simply doesn't have enough homes. Despite headlines about rising supply, the UK is still building tens of thousands fewer homes each year than it needs. For decades, we've been falling short by roughly 70,000 new properties annually. The result is a housing system permanently under pressure, and every small fluctuation in supply or demand only redistributes that pressure rather than relieving it. Since 2020, rents have surged by 36%. Wages, by comparison, have risen about 31%. House prices, which dominate public debate, are up just 20%. That means renters are being squeezed from both ends. On average, 44% of a tenant's take-home pay now goes straight to rent, up from 40% 5 years ago. For younger renters, the situation is even more severe. Only about 1 in 10 people aged 20 to 44 can afford to buy a home in the current market. For single renters, it's closer to 3 in 100. And for those hoping for social housing, the outlook is equally grim. More than 1.3 million households in England are on waiting lists, with over 1/3 of a million in London alone. The number of families in temporary accommodation has climbed to record levels, costing the government nearly £2 billion a year, money that merely manages the crisis rather than fixing it. Meanwhile, the construction of new social homes has fallen to its lowest level in years. Against this backdrop, one of the most significant housing reforms in a generation has just become law. The Renters' Rights Act, which received royal assent in late October 2025, promises to reshape how Britain rents and lets property. It abolishes Section 21 no-fault evictions, a practice that allowed landlords to remove tenants without reason, often forcing families from their homes with as little as 8 weeks' notice. Under the new system, landlords will need specific legal grounds, such as rent arrears or property sale, to end a tenancy. The Act also introduces rolling tenancies, tighter controls on rent increases, a ban on bidding wars, and stronger protections against discrimination. In theory, it's a landmark victory for tenants' security and dignity, a long overdue modernization of a system that's tilted too far toward landlords. But there's a difficult truth here too: many landlords see it as the final straw. Over 2/3 say they believe it will be harder to regain possession of their property when needed. Even those who rarely used Section 21 say its removal changes their sense of security. As a result, thousands of landlords are reportedly serving final eviction notices before the new law takes effect, clearing their portfolios and preparing to sell. For the tenants receiving those notices, especially just before Christmas, it's devastating news. For the wider market, it's another shockwave that could further reduce available rental supply next year. Landlord exits are nothing new. The sector has been shrinking since 2016, and by some estimates, nearly 1 in 3 landlords has already left the market. New environmental standards, safety requirements, and the lingering financial impacts of rising maintenance costs have added to the strain. Even for those staying, compliance costs are mounting, from insulation and energy efficiency upgrades to damp proofing and structural improvements. All these pressures add up, and when landlords face higher costs, rents inevitably rise. Experts now warn that 2026 could bring a steep contraction in the private rental sector just as demand starts to rebound. Fewer landlords mean fewer homes available to rent. And with homebuilding still far below target, that combination risks pushing rents even higher. Some forecasts predict a further rise of between 5% and 10% over the next year, compounding the 36% increase since 2020. For the average tenant, that could mean an additional £1,600 in annual rent, a crushing figure during an ongoing cost of living crisis. Local councils are already feeling the strain. Homelessness is up 8% this year, and councils across England are spending hundreds of millions of pounds more on emergency accommodation than they receive back from central government. Several authorities have warned that without extra funding, they may face financial collapse. Social housing providers, too, are under intense pressure, with waiting lists rising and fewer new homes being built each year. In short, every part of the system, private, public, and social, is under strain at once. Yet amid the gloom, there are small but promising examples of innovation. Liverpool City Council, for instance, has begun offering grants to private landlords who refurbish vacant or substandard properties and lease them back to the council for use as social housing. The result is a rare win-win: landlords receive a steady income, councils expand their housing stock, and families move out of temporary accommodation into stable homes. It's a model that shows cooperation, not confrontation, might be the key to fixing Britain's housing crisis. As we look ahead, the picture is both challenging and urgent. The rental market isn't collapsing, but it's evolving, and fast. The Renters' Rights Act will give tenants much-needed security, but it will also drive structural change as landlords adjust or exit. Supply will likely fall before it stabilizes, and rents will continue to rise in the short term. For tenants, it's essential to understand new rights and prepare early if a landlord plans to sell. For landlords, Adapting to the new rules and maintaining transparency with tenants will be crucial to staying viable in a tighter, more regulated environment. Ultimately, this is about more than property. Housing is the foundation of the entire economy, shaping everything from family life to productivity and national stability. When people spend nearly half their income on rent, it stifles growth, reduces savings, and limits opportunity. The solutions from planning reform to large-scale building investment are well known. The question is whether there's enough political will to act. At Property Report UK, we'll continue tracking every development in this rapidly changing landscape, from new legislation to market trends and expert insights. If you found this update informative, make sure you're subscribed and click the like button so more people can see what's really happening behind the headlines. Because the story of the UK's housing market isn't just about numbers, it's about people, choices, and the future we're all trying to afford. Thanks for watching Property Report UK. Stay informed, stay prepared, and join us next time for more analysis, data, and clear reporting on the UK's housing and property market. Until then, take care, and we'll see you in the next report.